So here we're at the prototypes, 4 concrete, 4 of alternate materials. This one's just solid concrete. You can see how thick the concrete is on the bottom. It's probably, 3 feet of solid thick concrete. 30 feet tall. The bottom's probably about 2 feet thick. This was actually poured in place. They all go down at least 6 feet. So this is steel bollards for probably the first 10, 12 feet. And then it has an anti-climbing plate in the middle, about 4 feet. And then on top of that, it has concrete. The next one has a little bit more of an aesthetic feature on our side. Has more of a stamped concrete look, and it has an anti-climbing kind of canted fence. It's angled towards the south side. Not a lot of people would be willing to climb this. Are people still going to get up and over it? Yeah, it's going to take them a lot more time, of course, which is a benefit for us.
Currently, the wall along the U.S. Mexico border in San Diego is 2 fences built in the 90s that together span 46 miles. They can be cut or scaled in a matter of seconds.
When this was originally built in the late 90s, 1997 around, it was very effective just because it would stop people, take them a little longer to jump up and over. They can still get through, cut this in about 30, 45 seconds with the tools available now. For example, battery-operated Sawzall, skill saw. And so that's why it's time to replace this with something like the prototypes that we saw earlier.
Roughly 2,000 agents like Theron Francisco patrol the California border. They also watch for smugglers at ports of entry such as San Ysidro, between Tijuana and San Diego.
It's the busiest land port in the world. They deal with roughly about 100,000 people a day. As you can see behind me, they're undergoing a huge expansion, increasing the number of vehicle lanes coming through, the pedestrian lanes. So with the construction going on the south side, we've had, imposters, aliens come across and they'll dress up like construction workers. We'll have a number of agents close to the construction area so they can keep an eye on that.
Agent Francisco joined the U.S. Customs and Border Protection 8 years ago. He was drawn to the job by a personal connection.
My wife's grandfather was a retired agent. When I met her, he worked out of the El Cajon station, and just hearing his stories, like the camaraderie between the agents, they always bragged about him and how good he was, like as far as sign cutting, because that's a large portion of our job is sign cutting, which is just following footprints, tracking people, tracking usually footprints or disturbances in the ground. So whether it's the imprint of the shoe, or now they use carpet squares or a type of booty around their shoe, and just hearing how good he was, I want to be like that one day. Apprehending your first group of illegal aliens, actually tracking them from the border for a couple hours, and you finally make that apprehension. The first time, it was like nothing else I've ever felt. That put a smile on your face and made you proud, like you're making a difference. And then making apprehensions at the checkpoint, rescuing people that were stuffed in trunks in the middle of the summer, pleading for water. That's pretty gratifying as well, because you don't know how long they would have made it if they got past you.
So far this year, the Border Patrol in the San Diego sector has apprehended 28,000 people. That's up nearly 10% from 2017. The Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy adopted in May led to the widely criticized separation of thousands of migrant children from their parents. The policy has since ended. Sometimes in your job, you have to apprehend families, little children. How do you handle that? Is that difficult?
Not necessarily. It's just a part of the job. You kind of have to understand that where they're coming from, they're trying to better themselves, but they have the responsibility to enter legally, whether that process is difficult or not feasible for them. But my job is to stop illegal entries, and that's what I do. That father could be a wanted criminal or have a pretty bad rap sheet. So you kind of have to keep that on the back of your mind. You can't get complacent, can't get comfortable, but you feel for him, but there's a right way to enter and there's a wrong way.
Our tour along the border ended where the last planks of the fence recede into the Pacific Ocean. We stood near a spot called Friendship Circle, where for a few hours on the weekends, visitors on either side of the border can speak to each other through a metal fence. But these days, the fight over immigration in the U.S. is testing the bonds of friendship with Mexico like never before, and increasing scrutiny of border policies and the people who have to enforce them.
There are more eyes on us in the media, but we're used to that. We can handle that. But as far as on the field, I think the guys and gals in green have adapted well, and they continue to do their job.
Even if a new border wall eventually gets funded and built, it remains to be seen if a new barrier, no matter how tall, will stop people daring or desperate enough to cross the border.